the project manager for Leduc County, and he'll give us a brief introduction. Jordan?
Thanks for that, Sarah. My name is Jordan Evans. I am the manager of regional and long-range planning for Leduc County, and I'm also the project manager for this project. You just heard from Sarah. She is with our consulting group who is leading this project for us, which is IBI Group, and you'll hear from them in a few minutes. I'd like to, just before giving you a quick project, I just wanted to acknowledge that we do have a couple of elected officials with us today. That is our mayor, Tanny DeBlanco. Tanny can just wave there. Hello. And councillor for this area, which is Councillor Kelly Vandenberg. And I think Kelly was going to just make a couple remarks before we start off here. So if you wanted to go ahead, Kelly, I'll just put myself on mute.
All right. Thanks, Jordan. And I presume everybody can hear me. I don't have a t-shirt that asks if my microphone is turned off or on. And I will note that you and Sarah are obviously working in a different time zone, due to all the light behind you. The rest of us are in the dark, by the way. I do see a lot of familiar faces on board. Thank you for coming out. Mike, nice beard. And I am very much interested in hearing your genuine feedback on this most important issue. It's regarded as the redevelopment plan for Central Nisku. I kind of term it as the revitalization plan. And keep those things in mind throughout the presentation. Whatever pops into your mind, your feedback is extremely important. And just want to say thank you, Jordan and Sarah, for the work that you're putting into it. And Tanny for being on the call. I will be happy to turn it back over to you, and I'll be in the background.
Thanks for that, Councillor Vandenberg. So just a really brief overview of what this project is, why we're doing it, and how it came to be. It really started with our council's new municipal development plan. I say new, it's a couple of years old now. It was adopted in spring of 2019. And that really set this the past council's vision for Leduc County and how it will grow and develop over the long term. Within that plan, we had defined our Nisku area, which is the area that comprises the core Nisku area, which is what we're here to talk about today, as well as two expansion areas, the area where you're seeing a large amount of activity in the north, and then an area in the northwest of Saunders Lake as well. So within that context of the municipal development plan, this council has just adopted a major area structure plan for that area, which really defines the objectives for growing our economic base in Nisku over the long term. Through that plan, we've identified that the core area of Nisku is a priority for the county. And so this plan is really about defining how we look to guide the long-term growth of the central core Nisku area over the long term. So that really is the basis for the plan. As Sarah noted, this is our second public engagement on this project. And so we have defined some possible development scenarios, but we're really here to present those to you tonight, get your reaction, and then get your feedback, and that will inform how this plan ultimately lays out. And that will be brought back to council in the new year. So thank you very much for joining us, and I'll pass it back over to Sarah.
Thank you, Jordan. And yes, no, I'm joining you locally. I've just got a fabulous background on here. You don't want to see my kitchen, so I'm joining you from the Edmonton area. Anyways, moving on to the beginning of the presentation. Just quick kind of overview, as Jordan had said. I am Sarah Sherman. I'm an urban planner with IBI Group, who is working with Leduc County to prepare this plan. And I'll just give you kind of a bit of a project background on kind of where we started, where we are now, and then take us into kind of next steps for this project. We'll present 3 development scenarios that we've developed obviously with the county project team, and also based on input from the first public engagement event we had earlier this year. And then we'll also lead a workshop with you, hoping that you'll provide your input and also connect you with some further opportunities to participate, particularly with an online survey. So just quick introduction to the project team. You've all met Jordan and Lindsay Chambers with Leduc County, the communications coordinator who's helped put this together. From IBI Group, we have Catherine Chopko-Beck, a project director, joining us. Just give us a little wave there, Catherine. There she is. Sam Alatorre, the project manager. Here he is. He'll be taking us through the development scenarios a little bit later in the presentation. And then myself, working in the planning and public engagement space. So just quick kind of summary of the project. Leduc County and Nisku specifically benefits from a locational advantage in the Edmonton region. The project scope is to prepare a local area redevelopment plan for Central Nisku. This plan will provide a framework for commercial and industrial land uses that support the well-established energy sector in the area, but also support emerging industries that benefit from the unique location to air, highway, and rail transportation networks. The study area, as you can see from this map, is quite large. The boundaries, more or less, are Township Road 510 to the north, QE2 Highway to the west, Black Mud Creek and the Vistas neighborhoods to the east, and Airport Road to the south. It's approximately 2,200 hectares, with approximately 613 businesses, 11,000 employees, and industries represented across Central Nisku include the energy, manufacturing, agri-food, transportation and logistics, rental and leasing, among others. So here we are in kind of the broader scope of the whole project. We're kind of transitioning between phase 2 and 3 of we've prepared development scenarios and are working towards a preferred concept with your input tonight. So the whole thing started, the project started back in November 17th, 2020, where we started with a virtual site visit. So again, just living in the world of COVID these days, it was safer to conduct this virtually, and actually was very useful being able to really see the whole plan area in the large aerial scope of what we're really looking at in terms of how large the area is. And the county kind of walked us through and shared their local knowledge with us, particularly Jordan Evans, on the areas that they would like to focus on along Airport Road, the Spine Road, Sparrow Drive, and the status of the Nisku Recreation Center at that time. From the visit, land use clusters and opportunities to concentrate activity nodes had started to emerge. And we'll cover that a bit further later on in the presentation. Sorry, just gonna. Okay, so our next step was the first public engagement event that occurred or took place on April 12th. And again, it was an online event such as this. It was a live presentation and discussion with business owners, employees within the Nisku Business Park, as well as residents of the Vistas. It too included an online survey that was open from March 19th to April 16th. What we heard from that engagement event was that the location and affordability is a competitive advantage in the region, particularly for this Central Nisku area. There's an opportunity to focus on diversifying business sectors. High-speed broadband internet was a needed infrastructure addition, probably made evident with our life in COVID, everything moving online, as well as enhanced infrastructure for public transit and safe pedestrian crossings and walkways, and to really maintain the fiscal advantage to stay competitive with comparable parks in the region. This then led into a background report that included a full technical review of background information, guiding policies from the county, environmental review, servicing analysis, etc. That was submitted May 17th earlier this year. And key findings, oops, sorry, wrong button. Key findings included that there was no significant environmental constraints to intensifying development within the area. There was sufficient service land to accommodate the intensification of uses. Public realm improvements to keep competitive advantage in the region over kind of comparable and newer parks, such as the city of Leduc to the south or Atchison, for example. There were some gaps identified. The Transportation Master Plan was not ready to review at that time. We have since had the opportunity to review it and provide comment, as well as some servicing data was incomplete just due to the age of the business park and the absence of a utilities master plan. That would require some additional data collection or potential kind of conceptual planning to support this development scenario, but we're working through that and we'll be able to kind of fill those gaps as the project evolves. So we then developed the 3 development scenarios that will come up here shortly. In that we had prepared this report that captured the planning rationale for each development scenario in terms of best practice, market trends, and guiding policies from the county. The key policy direction came from the Municipal Development Plan and the new Nisku Major Employment Center Area Structure Plan. From the MDP, it really encouraged higher density, fully serviced development, non-residential land uses of high quality, must be financially viable, and prioritize connections such as street networks, trails, transit corridors, etc. The guiding policy from the MEC Area Structure Plan, for short form, encouraged, again, maximizing development intensity, relocating outdoor storage to other areas of the county, reclaiming Black Mud Creek, key nodes including the Nisku Spine Road, Highway 625, the Airport Road, Sparrow Drive, and 30th Avenue. And Sam here will take over from here and he'll talk about the market trends and how that inform the development scenarios. Sam, go ahead.
Thank you. I hope everyone can hear me. My name is Sam Alatorre. I'm a planner with IBI Group in Calgary. And also with us is Asia Estante, who's going to be facilitating. Asia, if you can wave to the crowd, please. She's also in the Calgary office, and she's going to be facilitating one of the exercises that we're going to be doing later tonight. First of all, thank you everyone for taking time of your evening to join us for this conversation. As Sarah has indicated, we've done all the background research. We've had conversations with the county staff to see what is the best way to make the most of this large area that is already serviced and that it has a great location. In addition to the virtual site visit that we did jointly with the county, our team has also done independent site visits, actually driving around the site to better appreciate the opportunities and the challenges that the area offers. So, and some of the photos that were shown for the virtual site visit were actually taken by our team. So we're somewhat familiar with the context and how large the area is and how well connected it is to the network of transportation and the rest of the county. So what we'd like to do today is really facilitate a conversation to foster your input and really guide us into the process of the next stage of the plan. And as we go through that to the discussion, something that we like to share with you is that we like to focus on who's the audience that we're making this plan for, and that's where this slide comes into discussion very handily. We're looking at a planning horizon of 20-25 years, and so we're essentially making decisions today for people that are going to be working in the plan area in the next 20 years. So we're talking about people that are already joining the workforce and will be joining the workforce in the next few years. And we took a review of some background studies that we have applied for other similar employment areas in other parts of Alberta. And this is what we found, and we like you to be aware of as we go through the conversation. We're essentially designing for very different generations that are already joining us in the workforce here in Central Nisku. The millennials that everybody has heard about probably already, or you have a few millennials in your household, and also Generation Z, which we also have some in our household as well. They see the world differently. They rely on different information and different sources, and therefore they are getting used to working in different contexts. And that's something that we want to acknowledge as we look at the opportunities that this plan area can offer. Their preferences based on the multiple studies that have been done on how they work and how they interact professionally, and we're just citing one source here, is that cities need to adapt to accommodate those preferences in order to attract them and retain that talent, so that therefore economic development follows and seeks that talent for the future of our communities. Next slide, please. And in those conversations and in those studies, and we're citing another study here recently done last year, published last year, is that the aspect of placemaking, that is having very attractive settings for the places where we work that offer livability, talent attraction, business attraction, sustainability, connectivity, diversity, and inclusion. Those are the principles that the new generations are looking for. And this aligns very nicely with some of the feedback that we got during the first engagement session, in which we noted that while well connected and with good infrastructure, it is important to keep the plan area, Central Nisku, fiscally competitive for one, and second, make it more attractive to accommodate more amenities that can appeal to the interest of the new generations, the new workforce. So the way that we're planning to approach this is to try to focus on those areas in which there is some concentration of workforce and perhaps where we can perhaps stimulate pedestrian activity to try to grow some more attractiveness into the streetscape and how to build a more appealing context in terms of the Central Nisku area. We want to build on what is already there and has worked for years, and those are the economic sectors that are already there. But as we go through the discussion tonight, I would like to invite you to imagine how those sectors, energy sector, food processing, agricultural, and all the other sectors that already have a strong presence in Central Nisku, how are those sectors going to evolve in the next 20 years? Because that's where the challenge is. How do we keep this area that has these amenities or these opportunities? How do you keep it competitive? And how do we turn it into something more than what it is today, so that it can continue to be a benefit for Leduc County? Next. So one of the first things that we did is, I hope that everybody can see this slide properly, is that we acknowledge that this is a very large plan area. It's over 2,700 hectares. And we needed to have somewhat of a structure that allowed us to see the different components of the plan area independently, so that we could appreciate the opportunities that could appear locally. So we kind of adopted the legibility system popularized by Kevin Lynch years ago, We introduced this to the plan area. So we identified the clear borders, districts, and other elements that would allow us to read the plan area better. Therefore, we identified that Highway 625 and Airport Road, for example, those are high load corridors that need to be protected. So to keep the industries that are there connected to the rest of the transportation network. We also acknowledge that the future expansion of the Spine Road is going to be a catalyst to spur redevelopment in the area. And that's something that we can build with. We also noticed that the rail infrastructure that runs along QE2 is going to remain there for quite a while. And it's an infrastructure that we want to retain for the future of the economic prosperity of Leduc County. And we know that there are some rail spurs going into the area, and that's something else that we want to retain. So that started to paint out some of the different districts that you see here. And I'll just briefly describe them to you. District 1 at the very north of the study area, it's a district that it's north of Township Road 510 or 30 Avenue. It's the upper tip of the plan area, but it's an area that is somewhat isolated in itself, but it's connected to what we're identifying as one of the development nodes because of activity that is happening further to the north, which is the concentration of logistics and distribution activities. And maybe that is the character that we could explore for that part of the plan area. District 2 is somewhat more connected to the country residential areas to the east of the plan area, because you have Blackmud Creek there, and you have the future expansion of the Spine Road. District 3, we see as, which is at the north central part of the plan area, we see that as the core industrial activity for Central Nisku. That is where most of the typical heavy industries are being located over time. And is somewhat, let's say, bordered by the rail to the west and the future expansion of the Spine Road to the east. Districts 4 and 6 are more connected and have more exposure visibly to QE2. Therefore, that kind of reinforces the tendency for those areas to continue as maybe leaning towards highway commercial activity, some of the land uses that you already see there. District 5 has a lower intensity of the core industrial activity, but it still has some lands that are potentially developable, and has exposure and presence towards Blackmud Creek. District 7 is, in our opinion, it's a very interesting district because it connects the hotel or the hospitality business node located in the south along Airport Road, and it also includes a potentially emerging node, which is Node B, that could be tied to Highway 625. And that's where you see the sports field and the former or the existing recreation center that could be reactivated as something to facilitate business incubation and interaction, right? District 8 is probably one that has a longer, let's say, lifespan, because it still has some of the agricultural land uses that, based on higher level policy documents, we want to retain as much as possible. That is a direction that comes directly from the Municipal Development Plan and the Major Employment Center Area Structure Plan. And it also allows us to create a buffer between the industrial activity that is characteristic to Central Nisku and the residential areas that are east of Blackmud Creek. So as you can see, once we start breaking down the different, let's say, districts of the plan area, not everything looks the same. And in some reason, it looks more manageable. And it also allows us then to be more strategic on our planning and development approach. as we start thinking about revitalization and redevelopment opportunities. We don't need to do everything at once. In fact, I don't think we want to do everything at once. This is too large an area to try to attempt something like that, particularly if we want to be responsible and keep the park and the plan area fiscally competitive. So this allows us to start perhaps focusing closer into what we can do in the activity nodes. Activity node A in the south, activity node B in the center, and activity node C at the top in the north part of the plan area. If we start doing that, following that approach, and we begin to be successful in triggering some redevelopment activity, then as the plan implementation progresses, then we can explore some other alternatives that may seem a little bit out of reach at the moment. So this is the general structure that we've kind of adopted to facilitate the conversation. Now we're going to move in having introduced the tendencies in the demographic part of the equation, and having introduced the general structure for the plan area, we're going to go into discussing about the development scenarios as an introduction to the activities that are coming forward. So development scenario 1 is where we're labeling continued business. What this means is that we are very cautious in terms of how we facilitate redevelopment or foster redevelopment initiatives. But we also take into account some previous conversations that the community has had, particularly along District 8, which is the one that still has the agricultural lands. If you can point to that, Sarah, with your cursor, please. So when the Blackmud Creek ASP was prepared, there was some discussion about how to include perhaps another uses like a business park context to try to facilitate a buffer between the more industrial land uses to the west and the country residential areas to the east. So what we're doing in scenario 1 is proposing that actually takes place. And we start facilitating that to take place once the spine road is introduced. Then maybe some of the parcels that are fronting the spine road can turn into light industrial instead of being the heavy industrial land uses that you currently have on site. But we retain a good portion of the agricultural lands as part of that transition towards Blackmud Creek. Blackmud Creek, as you know, it's probably the main environmental area within the area of study. And that's something that we like to not only retain, but also facilitate its recovery of the riparian areas and try to see it revert. In this other part, which is the the development node A, what we're calling the business and hospitality node, what we like to see or explore is to really enhance the presence of the business and hospitality activities. That's where you already have some of those investments taking place. Some of the hotels that are there, some of the restaurants are there. The county building, the county office building is there. So you have a somewhat of a concentration of jobs and potential pedestrian activity that we need to would like to foster. And that's where you see the light yellow lines. Those are where we like to concentrate the streetscape enhancement efforts. And what do we mean when we say streetscape enhancement? We're talking about perhaps introducing sidewalk on one side of the road, trail on the other side, some landscaping, something that invites some of the people that are really working there or that are staying there to really come out and start creating a different kind of urban context. And this would respond then to some of the directives that are coming from the Municipal Development Plan and the major economic center area structure plan in terms of improving the urban context of any new development. And that's where we see the opportunity to really start creating that node. And then as that node consolidates, we can probably expand it somewhere else. Uh, with regards to districts 4 and 6 that are fronting the QE2, we are proposing that they remain under the same activities and land uses that they currently have. Perhaps enhance a little bit their presence with some screening towards the QE2, because that's the facade of the park that offers to people coming out of the airport and coming also to Edmonton, to the Edmonton region along QE2. It already has a strong presence, but there's something that perhaps we could explore with some additional policy. You can see the stats for the development scenario. I will not go into detail of those, but I'll use those to explain the difference of the 3 scenarios by the time we get to the third. Again, if you have any questions or comments, you can raise your hand or you can type your question on the chat box, and that is the purpose of this conversation. I already see a hand up. Richard Nickel, would you like to express your comment?
Yes, please. I've got a bit of concern with regards to, you didn't seem to take into consideration our approved outline plan for the area north of Irving Creek, which currently has zone for industrial and business incubation. Why are you trying to change the approved zoning that I already have?
That has been taken into consideration. You're talking about the north part of District 2, right?
So this is where, yeah, that Irvine, no,
it's further north.
Part. Go to the purple part to the right.
Yeah, it's to the right.
There, there.
Yeah.
That's our parcel, which already has an approved outline plan that is making it both business incubation for part of the parcel and industrial for part of the parcel. And I mean, we're about to launch our first incubatee on January. So this is causing me quite a bit of concern that you have completely removed business incubation from the plan, which had already been approved by council.
In the slide that I have on my screen, it's showing as purple still.
It's showing as business park, and then when you go to business incubation, you have 0% of the land allocated to business incubation, which means I'm interpreting that as you're going to try to change my zoning.
No, not necessarily. That's part of the conversation we wanted to have today. We noticed that you had that land use, and if that's we weren't sure how far you were along on the process. If that's something that is going to continue and you're investing in that, that's something that we can certainly retain. I mean, that's something that could potentially link to the scope that we're seeing for District 1. I mean, for District 1, yes, the activity node up there. We're not necessarily trying to change anything that you have ongoing, and that probably calls for a separate conversation with you to better understand the development process that you're going through.
Yeah, I would really appreciate that, because we've already got an agreement with the first biotech manufacturer there, so I don't want to change gears.
Right, thank you, and we'll probably go ahead and schedule a separate conversation with you to better understand the dynamics and the process that you're going through.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you for bringing that up. Go ahead.
I think it might just be worth noting as well that this plan won't change your land use zoning as it is now. This is a policy to propose future redevelopment. So your current zoning won't change in terms of what you're trying to do within what's allowed on your land right now. And as long as you're looking at doing development as it complies to current plans right now, this won't affect you. This is meant for long-range future redevelopment. So just wanted to maybe clarify that for you. But yes, we would like to have another conversation with you later.
Yeah, I think it would be very helpful.
Great.
Thank you, Richard.
Thanks.
Any additional comments on that?
No, if we're going to have a discussion, because I just want to
Yep.
make sure that we're not getting pulled off course, especially since I just put in an 8-inch water line. So
No, no, we won't. As we explained in the work program that we're following, this is this is the right time to have these conversations, right?
Yeah.
To be precise and really understand the background on the land uses that are there. We've had other conversations with the county. Some of the parcels that you see on the plan area have direct control land uses. Some of them have one, let's say, one rationale behind it. Some of them have others. So this is the way for us to facilitate that conversation, given that we haven't got a chance to really be in person with you guys. Somebody else had another handout. Is it Mike?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Sam. So there's a real easy potential here. You mentioned, I think it's areas A or B and B that you've recognized. So around where the county rec center is, as well as where some of the hotels are located, a little bit closer to the town center or the administrative offices. Just looking at this from the standpoint of a road biker, one of the things about the spine road is that the spine road connects what would be these areas almost perfectly to what would be a recreation that's other than in this particular area is quite popular. So road biking in this particular area is quite popular on the range roads and township roads, furthered by the MS bike that starts in Nisku and so there's a potential opportunity to tie in these areas that you're going to improve what would be the roadways to what would be a road biking network that probably if the spine road is used as a connection and all you'd have to do is put what would be the provision for that along the spine road, you very likely could attract what would be some of the folks and some of the interest to some of these areas that you're trying to create in service of B and A. So I would have you just look at that a little bit closer in terms of tying this in with all nodes of traffic, including road biking.
Certainly, Mike, and thank you very much for bringing that particular activity to the forefront. We have, if we go back to scenario 1, maybe, and hopefully you can see it on the screen, what we have as a dotted green line is a pathway network. And something that we're trying to achieve is to facilitate that mobility through alternative modes of transportation through that network in roads that are safer for bikers. Now, if you say that you're using a spine road currently, and you'll probably continue to use it as the spine road construction goes forward, that'll be very interesting to keep in mind as the area evolves. Again, this is a very large area that can have, let's say, work hours dynamic and off hours dynamic. And as long as we're building infrastructure that suits those different activities that happen in the planned area in a safe manner, that's something that we really like to explore. And I would invite you to be very active in the next activity that we're going to have, so to make sure that we record all your comments and your suggestions in any of the planned area, that locations of the planned area that are important for that activity. Would that be okay?
Yeah. So you'd probably also want to expand what would be the connections to places like Beaumont on Township Road 510, okay. So that you're adding dotted lines to to link to areas outside of the plan, because after all, road bikers, runners, anybody that's recreation really doesn't. They aren't going to drive to this plan area and then just start biking within it. They're probably going to access these areas by connections, from outside the plan area, and you're connecting Edmonton if you continue what would be the wide shoulders, and work with Edmonton. You'll be connecting Beaumont if you put in what would be a shared use, multi-use path, and make it safe. And furthermore, you have the potential of working with Leduc, and then linking what would be other areas of the county, well, even towards Devon, if you can, if you can imagine it that far.
Well, we'll certainly explore it, but again, I will invite you in the next activity that we're going to have, because you seem to be more familiar with the different routes that people take, either for cycling or for running, on how they connect to the plan area, where they're coming from. That would be important for us to know. So I will invite you to remain in the meeting, and as we start the other activity. And we have another hand up. Susan, go ahead, please. If you can unmute yourself.
Yeah,
yes.
Unmuting.
Go ahead.
On the previous slide, when you were talking about District 8, the comments that you made in District 8 about what was important to it and having good buffers with the residential areas is also just as important in District 5. You mentioned that has a lot of development still to happen. And so I just wanted to say that those comments that you made for 8 were entirely appropriate for 5 as well, more than just being open and still developable. And then if you go back down to this option 1 right now, from my perspective, if you were to take those comments, the white that you have is agriculture, which connects to the green for the parks and open space, and then the business park, that half-mile strip that you're taking, those that, whether it's green or white going up along the creek, but that purple needs to go up. It needs to be included in 5. You need a half-mile buffer going up along the creek. It can't just be light industrial. It needs to be business park-like, to have that adequate buffer going north. I've been asking for this in the Nisku plan for the last 15 years, that it not just be direct control. So the business park that was part of the Black Mud Creek structure plan was still under direct control, but was business park. And that half-mile strip needs to go up on the other side of 625.
Okay, thank you.
So
Noted.
you need a better buffer. And then one other comment that I have when I'm looking at all of these scenarios is on the east side of Black Mud Creek. You have green, and that this the local area, the borders of it, that right where you're pointing right there. That area is actually part of the country residential. If my property is in there, like my property goes to very close to the creek. So just like you have a residential area further north in zone 2, most of that parks and open space is part of my property. I have at least probably 10 or more acres that you've marked as green. So it's not really part of the Nisku. They've marked it as that. And I have no problem as marking it parks and open space, but if we mark it as parks and open space, what is the county going to do to make sure that the people who own that land, including myself, don't develop it. Because right now there's no ability for the county to stop my neighbor from developing his property that's part of the floodplain.
Yeah, and that's the key word that you just said at the end. It's part of the floodplain, and that's something that we're kind of analyzing properly. But we're taking notes of your comments, and this is part of the refinements that we're going to do as we move forward.
Okay.
But thank you for that.
And when you make the comment about the Black Mud Creek, because it has been, it's not in its natural state, you've made a comment about being a candidate for reclamation. What do you mean by that?
Retain it as the part of the green corridor that it should be.
So reclamation to be part of basically the parks and open space, not to do something else to it, not to develop it, no, but to try and return it to what it was. Exactly. Kind of.
Yeah. The idea is to try to have a more important role as an environmental asset for the plan area.
Okay. And just a third point, because the green space looks exactly the same in all your scenarios. Mm-hmm. So on the west side of Black Mud Creek, just a little bit further north, it's pink.
Yeah.
So I would like to see that as well, that because the floodplain goes to the edge, I think it's important that that be green as well, if at all possible, because if it's in the lower zone, if it's beyond the slopes, like if it's at the bottom of the slope, mm-hmm. it needs to be retained as part of Black Mud Creek, not to be allowed to be developed into some industrial land. Again, if we do business park like, then that goes up there as well, and it provides more disincentive to develop it.
Yeah, and as you can appreciate, this is a very large plan area, so yeah. we're trying to look at the whole. But at the same time, there are some refinements to be done as we go deeper into each district, like the ones that you're pointing out. So, okay. So that is going to be informed as part of our as our technical studies go into that level of detail. Okay. But this is just to get this part of what we're having right now, mm-hmm. which is this initial conversation about the broad ideas, and then we'll try to narrow them down as we go into the different districts.
To me, the one comment I made about the business park going up north of 625 is a broad thing. It's not just a narrow thing. That needs to
be. I understand that, yeah.
Because it's just as residential on the east side of Black Mud Creek there as it is on the east side of Black Mud Creek below, south of 625.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Susan. Can we briefly move to the next scenario, please, Sarah? I want to make sure that we have enough time for the activity. So scenario 2 goes up a little bit more into what we're calling enhanced performance, meaning we're trying to keep the core of the industrial activity that already exists in districts 3, 4, and then trying to widen the scope of business park like uses or activities along the future expansion of the Spine Road. We're also expanding a little bit more the potential location of the business and hospitality node in the south part, fronting Airport Road. Just again recognizing the fact that there's already activity that we can build upon on that regard. And you can also notice that in the central part of District 7, we are perhaps exploring the idea of turning that into light industrial. And this is just to accommodate the natural, perhaps, evolution of some of the industries that are looking at relocating at this park or maybe growing within this park. Again, because of the planning horizon that we have, we're just trying to facilitate flexibility for companies that are there to remain there, but also to allow for that evolution in their business cycle as they progress, responding to opportunities in the market. And if we go to a scenario 3, Mike, I'll come back to your comment quickly. As we go to a scenario 3, it's essentially the same concept, other than with the only difference that we're considering that maybe the full frontage of Airport Road could be dedicated to business and hospitality. And this is looking into, well, how do we facilitate a closer connection and welcoming aspect to the main entrance to the Edmonton International Airport. And that is where we are proposing that maybe the south part of District 7, which is fronting QE2, could potentially start seeing some redevelopment activity looking more towards hospitality and business. So those, in a nutshell, those are the three scenarios. Before we turn to the interactive activity, Mike, I'd like to address your comment or question. Please go ahead.
What I was going to say is that does your planning also include what would be, besides the consideration of nodes and infrastructure, does it also include what would be thinking about the outlet mall and the shuttle that comes from what would be Edmonton International Airport to the outlet mall? Would your planning and consideration also include what would be shuttle service to what would be, we'll call it Leduc County Town Center?
Well, part of our scope is to look at transportation and mobility alternatives as part of the policy framework. So I'm assuming that what you're referring to is going to be part of that. We are not at the stage that we're developing policy at the moment. We're just trying to understand how the area works and how people are relating to the area and some of these initial ideas. As we start going into policy, that's where, in particular to transportation and mobility, that's where elements like pedestrian and cycling connections, transit service and shuttle service, and other mobility elements are going to come into play to make this area either more accessible or more useful for whoever is working there or who might be looking to move their business to that location. Stephen, go ahead. Stephen? I'm sorry, John, Stephen, or Stephen, John? If you can hear me and you can unmute yourself, you had your hand raised.
Go ahead, you're unmuted.
He still has his hands up, but I'm not hearing anything. Can you hear us?
Sorry, we can't hear you, Stephen. We can see you talking, but we can't hear you.
Or if you want to type your comment in the chat box.
Yeah, great. Thank you. We'll just give you a minute to do that.
Okay, so this has been, again, a general introduction to the different ways of looking at the plan area. Now, just keep in mind that the development scenarios are not isolated from one from the other. There could be a hybrid scenario, and that you like. There are aspects of one that you like, and there are aspects of other that you like that they're not in one single scenario. And that's what the purpose of the following exercise. We're going to try to make it as interactive as possible, and hopefully you'll find it fun as well, since we cannot be in the same room tonight. So I would like to turn it over to Aisha to facilitate that scenario. I'm sorry, that discussion.
Great. Thanks so much, Sam, and everyone else for your comments. I have put in the chat box a link to an activity. If you would like to click on that, and you can start entering into the room and kind of getting yourself set up. What we're going to do is we have set up a workboard. It is a link to Mural, which is what we're going to be using. That's the app. And we've put in all three of the development scenarios. And we are going to let you kind of tell us and show us what you like and dislike about all of these scenarios. So all of the comments that you've already kind of started to tell us, you can expand on those a little bit. I can guide you through how to use it, and I can tell you a little bit about how we can.
And Aisha, just a comment. I click on the link, so I get to the welcoming window, and it says enter your name. That's optional, or you can enter as the visiting transportation mode that you're assigned, and then just enter as visitor, correct?
Yes, just enter as a visitor. You can put in your name if you want, or you can just be a little boat or a kayak or whatever you want. So we're just going to start at development scenario number 1, and I'm going to pull everybody over to me so that we're all on the same page. And I'm just going to, if I can, I'm just going to grab my screen so that everybody can see me. You don't necessarily have to participate in this way. I'm going to share my screen so that you can look at what I'm doing, and if anybody has any input, you can feel free to put it in the chat. You can let me know, and I can help you out. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a demonstration, just so that you know what's happening. So up here we have these little dots. You can move these. Oh, someone stole mine. You can move these around and take them and move them wherever you want. And you can put the red ones for places that you dislike. If you want to take these comments, you can take these, double click on them, and you can write something in here. If you want to just write a comment, you can leave it here, or you can place it somewhere on the board if you want to have something specific that you would like to make a comment on. If you want, if you run out of comments, you can also just double click wherever you want, and you can, it'll make a new comment. A new sticky note, I should say. So you can also, when you're scrolling, you can zoom in by just zooming in on your cursor. You can zoom out to do the same thing. And if you want to be a little bit more, get a little bit more specific, you can go over to the left-hand side, click on this draw button here, and then pick your color. And then when you're done drawing, you can go over to done drawing. And that is about it, all you need to know about mural. If you, yeah, I think that's it.
So we're going to give you some time to look at development scenario 1, and then we'll do the same scenario for the same exercise for the other 2 scenarios, correct?
Yeah, and if you'd like to unmute yourself, if you are having any trouble with any of these things, you can feel free to put some things into the chat. If you're having trouble using Mural, or if you'd like to say anything out loud, and I can help you, I can help you put in some comments.
Richard, were you able to log in?
Not quite yet. I'm still having some challenge here, but if I'm unsuccessful, then we'll still have the discussion later. So it'll be fine.
Or you can just type your comments on the chat box, and then we'll put on a sticky note, and you'll see it on the screen. All right. And Mike, you had a comment?
Yeah, I do. So in Microsoft Teams, how do you enter the chat box to get to Say's link?
If you look at the top of your screen, you see two little guys, and that's the number of participants. The next one is conversation, that has like a conversation icon. If you click on that, you get to the chat box.
I have hide participants and or request control, so I don't.
You don't see the hide conversation one?
No. That's why I'm asking about this.
That's strange.
It is.
I mean, alternatively, Mike, if you want to just share verbally your comment, we can note it this way.
Or Aisha, is there a way that we can send Mike the link to his email to the activity?
Maybe.
Because I see the link on the chat, but if he's not seeing the chat box.
Maybe.
Now, for those that are already working on the board, for example, if you put a red dot somewhere and you want us to understand why, please take a sticky note and put it next to your red dot, and just explain to us why you like something or why you don't like something. Richard, were you able to log in?
Yeah, I got things going here.
All right. So which one is you?
Oh,
The flying or the kayak or?
I don't know that part. I just was able to manipulate this thing.
Okay. Mike, I'm going to type my email in the chat. No, you cannot see the chat box. Mike, let me just confirm your name, just so we can look you up. What we have here is Mike B.
Oh, this is not good.
Sorry, folks.
We have a question from John Stephen. What is the current vacancy rate for the industrial park? How are you reclaiming the abandoned lots?
Jordan, I don't know if
Jordan, I'm not sure if you want to address that.
Sure. I'm on screen now. Sorry about that. So the last vacancy rate report that we had gotten, I believe, was in the realm of 8%, although we are expecting updated numbers coming on that within the month. So we'll have updated numbers. In terms of the question of how we are claiming abandoned lots, I believe the question was. What this plan does is set the policy context for development applications coming forward in the future. And so this isn't a matter of the county, going in and expropriating a lot or something like that. This is really about how we set the policy context and infrastructure development for the future moving forward. And Mr. Jim McKinnon, I believe, has just given us some better vacancy numbers than I had given you. So thank you for that. Hopefully that answers the question, but certainly feel free to type back in if I'm missing the mark.
Mike, we're still trying to get you into the board. We're just trying to identify your email so that we can send you the link separately. But Aisha, perhaps maybe we can move to the second scenario.
Yeah, are there any other last minute changes before we move on to the next one? Or comments? And Mike, I did send you the link. So
Yeah, I turned it off. So you can pull it out and dish some out.
All right, going to be moving over to the second one here. And I am going to bring everyone with me.
There you go. Mike, were you able to log in?
No, I didn't get the email. I sent you guys both my email so that you can just reply to it.
Okay, let me look for
Maybe
it.
you maybe added a seed or something like that.
Okay, I sent it again.
Please let us know if you're able to log in, Mike.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
And if there's something additional that you're not seeing on any of the development scenarios that we should be looking at, also please use the post-its and either ask a question or state your comment, please.
So this comment here, what is this brown area for? Is that referring to this here? Oh.
Sorry, that was mine. It's just bright. It's kind of that sandy color beside Irvine Creek. I just didn't, yeah, right there.
It's residential, country residential.
Okay, thank you.
Lucy Lowe, you've raised your hand. Do you have a question? I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Okay. I'm not able to move any of the dots, and I'm wondering if we can make comments in the survey that's going to be sent out.
Yep. If that's easier for you, the link to the survey will be made available shortly here, just once we finish this workshop. So that would be an opportunity for you to share.
Thank you.
Do you want to try moving the dots again? Okay, looks like some of the comments are starting to wrap up. So we'll move over to the next one and see what, we'll look over at scenario 3. Just make sure that these don't disappear on you.
We have a question from Brian Middleton. How does Leduc County plan on funding the upgrades in infrastructure, including improvements like the pathway network or the upgrades to Zone A, local improvement charges, increase in property taxes or levies?
Brian, thank you for your question. That's a key part of the conversation that we're having with the county. And that's where we wanted to have first the input from stakeholders and the community on the potential development scenarios. What it's included as part of our scope is a fiscal impact assessment on how much of these development scenarios can actually be implemented and fine-tuned to keep that balance between the enhancements that we want to see in the park and the fiscal competitiveness of the park. So that is something that is going to be part of the discussion going forward as we go into policy development.
Another question from Susan. What is business incubator space?
The business incubator space is the same, very similar to the concept of, I don't remember who was that made the comment on the North Business Incubation area. That is to foster space for new industries that are thinking of moving into the planned area and then growing their products or their business. There could be a location like the one that is already zoned that we were discussing earlier in the north part of the planned area, or there could be an alternative one, given that the size and the scale of the planned area located in the center. And there could be some orientation towards biotech as the one that was described in the north area up there, or there could be directed to other types of sectors. And there could be some synergies in having similar companies located in close proximity to each other. But the idea is to facilitate that interaction and those synergies as the planned area evolves. And I apologize for not remembering your name that when you mentioned that business incubation area in the north. If you can please identify yourself again, my apologies.
No, I actually was just asking where it was in the scenario one, because I didn't see any. But it wasn't any.
Not in scenario one, but it's all, as we discussed,
Yeah,
it's already zoned.
That was my comment. I was just adding comments. I was doing the dot thing.
Thank you.
Great. These look like some really great comments.
Yeah.
And it looks like we've got some people just adding a couple of final comments. So while everyone's wrapping those up, we do have one other exercise, and it's using the same application, but a different activity. So I'm going to, while you are all finishing up, I'm going to put this into the chat, and I have sent out here we go.
So we'll give it a couple of more minutes for the first activity to conclude.
Yeah.
Thank you, Aisha. Richard, Nicole, thank you. And my apologies for not remembering your name right away. But Richard is the one who made the comment about the business incubation land already zoned for that activity in the north. part of the plan area.
Mike, you have your hand up. Do you have a question? All right, so that second link, does anybody have any final comments or questions about the development scenarios while we are just wrapping this one up? Okay, well, we can get started on the other one. I'll leave that one open for anybody who's still writing, and then we'll move on to the other one. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm just going to move the other one over here. To get this one started, I am going to open this up, and we have an introduction. So this one is a voting exercise, and we are going to get it started with a little vote on just how to use this one here. Who has a better chance at the cup this year? And so the way that we are going to do this is once I set it up here, you have the option to just use one vote, and all you have to do is vote on which one of these you think is. You can just click on either one of those. So you can, I think the Flames, apparently the Flames are hot this year.
But you can only vote once, right?
This, you can only vote once. So what's going to happen as we go through is you're going to be able to vote on one less than the number of options there are. You can vote for, there's going to be sometimes 5 things. You can put numerous votes to, you can vote 3 times for one thing if you want, if you're very passionate about that one thing. And everybody looks like everybody's voted, so I'm going to end that voting session. Oh, the Oilers, typical. I'm not surprised.
Okay, we won't include that as a policy in the plan. Okay.
Yeah, this is not binding.
Okay. Has everybody else been able to log into this exercise? Or has anybody had trouble logging into this exercise? Right.
So what we're going to do going through this one is we're going to look at some possible options for streetscape enhancements. We're really just going to be going through, kind of going with your gut feeling and looking at what some things might be that you would like to see if you were in Nisku. So some of these ones are potential landscaping options, and this one here we're going to have there are 5 of them there.
Asia, we have a comment from Tammy that she hasn't been able to log in.
Oh,
and
okay.
Sarah has provided the link again.
Okay.
Tammy, please let us know when you have been able to log in.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just going to hold off on, well, I can start, and I'll just leave the voting open for a while. And we'll see if Tammy can get in here.
Thank you, Tammy.
Okay, great.
Jim McKinnon asked a question. Density is great, desired in urban settings, but do people want greater density in Nisku? What % of respondents to the research? People seem to like the space of Nisku, easy to navigate and access high-load corridors, QE2, etc. Groups coming into the park are often happy to get away from density, such as in South Edmonton. Largely, we're responding to the policy direction in the municipal development plan, as well as the major employment center area structure plan that was recently approved for the Nisku area. And those do ask for higher intensity of development and use. So that's kind of one of the guiding policies. And it's not to say that we're particularly trying to take away the large lots as they're critical to, you know, current business operations now, but just trying to provide the opportunity for intensification of uses as new businesses potentially come in, as businesses consider redevelopment, etc.
Yes,
Sam, if you want to add to that.
Yes, and Jim, thank you for your comment. I just want to probably just follow up on what you just said. We're probably more talking more about intensity of use rather than density or residential density as we associate it to urban areas. The policy direction is to explore ways to have a more efficient use of the infrastructure that is already there. And in a previous study that the county did, there was the multiple properties within the plan area were identified as underutilized, meaning that they could probably accommodate a little bit more development through a redevelopment effort that leads to a higher use of those parcels that have that infrastructure. Again, it's such a large area that we don't anticipate significant pockets or concentrations of density throughout, but rather a more strategic approach to some aspects or some parts of the plan area where you already have some activity to build upon. Hopefully that helps, but we'll provide additional alternatives for you and others to comment on that, Jim.
Okay, so I didn't realize that these captions disappear when we start the voting session, so maybe we'll just go over them a little bit before we start the next one. So in terms of the public realm and enhancing the public realm a little bit, there are a couple of options that are kind of low-key, just putting in pedestrian crossings, some greenery and sidewalks, some things that are a little bit more enhanced, so some gathering areas that are street facing, and then some gathering areas that are internal to some of the buildings. So that's what these are referring to.
Question from Cam McKay. What does a higher intensity industrial development look like, i.e. less used space, more building? Sorry, less yard space.
Sorry, jumping back to the yeah, and Cam, attending to your question, as I mentioned earlier, there is the opportunity to intensify the use of some of the parcels that are already there, meaning that there may be some properties that have huge areas for laydown of material or outer space or outdoor location of goods that are there, and maybe some of those lands could accommodate additional employment buildings or employment areas that bring more people into work in a new setting, and that increases the number of employees in the area. Therefore, increases also the more efficient use of the infrastructure is already there. It could take different shapes and forms, so it's difficult to really just say it's going to look like this or it's going to look like this other example. In the voting exercise that we're currently doing, we're trying to provide some examples of how other industrial parks in different settings provide some of those opportunities. And this will eventually inform on the way that we approach the development of policy for the plan area as we go forward. Hopefully that provides some answer to your question. There may be, again, sections in the plan area, like the development nodes, that we identified that could be, let's say, more intense in terms of how compact the building density is than others that may remain more as the core industrial park that you currently see on site, like District 3 that we were talking about.
So these ones are options for parks and open space. Up here on the left, we have a dog park, we have a sports field, we have activating winter uses, natural park, urban agriculture, and a great lawn. So something that is just a very loose kind of open space.
And Aisha, I remember we had one of the categories that had the bike paths in winter. So Mike might be probably interested in those.
Yeah, that's the pathways and mobility.
Okay, thanks.
All right, I'm going to give you 10 more seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What is it? Won't show me. Oh, there we go. A naturalized park. If you don't mind, I'm just going to do this one again really quickly because this one, I think I forgot to select which ones you could actually vote for. So I'm just going to do this one again because it got a little bit, we got some weird results for this one. There we go. So that's my mistake. I got everybody allowed to vote for the whole thing as opposed to just the public realm options.
Just a question for you.
Go ahead, Mike.
Around the reservoir, which is in the north part of the plan, just around where Irvine Creek meets Black Mud Creek, and just to the east of that, there was a potential plan for a rec center to be located in that particular area with playing fields that would service East Vistas. I see it's not part of your plan and or consideration.
Mike, it's Jordan here with the county. I'm not myself actually aware of the proposal that you're referring to, but having said that, in each of the development scenarios, we've identified it as parks and open space. So I think were that a proposal of that nature to come forward, it would likely fit within that policy context. So hopefully that answers your question, but let me know if I can help more.
Well, the rec center would be built by the county. It wouldn't be built by a proponent. It was anticipated that the East Vistas plan was gonna expand across the ravine and then link to this recreational area. So I don't see it, and with all the development scenarios that show green paths and everything else, you know, in some respects, if it was recognized, then it should be part of that. And I think IBI did some work with respect to tying that in when they did their parks planning.
Okay, we can go back and confirm that for sure, Mike, but we'll also take it back as a comment on the plan as well, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
And Kelly, you have a question?
So I'm just going to explain these pictures. So over here we have, or Sam, if you want to go ahead.
No, I was just noticing that Kelly had a question, but go ahead and explain this, and then we'll come back to Kelly's comment. And the council also has a comment.
These ones here are the some possible pathways and mobility networks. This one here, we'll start up at the top left. This is just some creek interfaces, so like a pathway along the creek. This one next to it is the year-round pathway usage, and just some things that make it available in the winter. The same thing with the one below it, so allowing cycling connections both in the summer and the winter. Moving along on the top, transit nodes, the possibility of enhancing, adding transit nodes and also enhancing bus stops. So putting in like bus shelters, things like that. Bridging distinct areas, so having that bridging, making connections between some of those distinct areas. So the country residential, the what's the word I'm looking for? Business districts, having those, the industrial, so having those bridges between them, metaphorically and potentially actually having like bridges, because there is the creek there. Having pedestrian overpasses, because there are some very busy roads in there, recognizing that we can't actually have pedestrian overpasses over the where the wide and the big loads have to go, and then roadside pedestrian pathways, making sure that we can have pedestrians and cyclists walking and biking along the paths. All right, so we'll start this one again. Thanks, Susan, for your, I was trying to get things going while people were talking, but obviously we can't do that if nobody knows what we're voting on.
Councillor, go ahead. You had a question or comment?
Yes, is it okay to have a word while the voting is taking place? Is that what's going on now?
Yes, please. Yes.
Great, thank you. Apologies, I had to step out for a moment, so I don't want to interrupt what you're doing here, but I wanted to expand a little bit on Mike's comment around the recreation centers. And so typically, and as Mike, you probably are aware, and perhaps many of you are not, the county's position on rec centers is usually a cost sharing a cost-sharing approach with the likes of the city of Leduc and Beaumont and that sort of thing. That said, the areas that are common, particularly in the north to Black Mud Creek, in our discussions in council came up with the idea of conducive to like a high-tech learning training area, like a Microsoft Center or any of the larger conglomerate type of corporations, even including the likes of Amazon type of thing. And in that conversation, we also talked about unique cultureness. I'm going to go with that word. And creating an agriculturally based market garden type of recreation and gathering center in and around that. The reason I'm bringing that thought up is I would really like to hear, Mike, you kind of reminded me of it. Is that do you see that as being a part of the 15, 20, 25-year plan and being necessary or being attractive for companies to want to invest because we have put in such type of facilities, because typically the county does not.
I think my comment would be usually these like if it's Amazon, they like to have it within an area that either their folks are living in or for that matter they're in proximity to what would be their buildings. And in answer to your question, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Great, thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. It's one of those things. If you've ever toured, and I've spent a lot of time traveling down the States, the business centers, the industrial parks, are set up such that as you drive by on a freeway, you don't even know they're there. And once you drive into these, they're very well high and very nice, nicely landscaped and manicured buildings and parks that really extend the lifestyle of people that work there. And I had been seeing that for years. And so this is sort of the idea that I get when we're talking about revitalization, of course. And it's really hard to think about revitalization when you know the history of Nisku and where it came from and how it got there. And so when I see pictures of these green spaces and lifestyle type of choices, I find it a little bit interesting. And so the conversation around what does recreation and market garden and agricultural centers, does that fit in Leduc County? Does it need to be in Nisku? Those are the type of things that I would really like to get some feedback on. That'll help me when I'm sitting at the council table.
And thank you, Councillor, because that's essentially the type of information that we're looking to collect in these types of sessions. So what are the aspirations, and then what is it that we can actually deliver feasibly as the plan comes together. So I think that we're having a lot of information in terms of what people may like or would like, and that will inform how we're going to be available to start putting the plan together. And that will certainly lead into more detailed conversations as we go forward.
All right, so we have one last voting session here, and these are a number of options and types of low impact development. Speaking of nature, types of bioretention. So up on the left here, we have some native plantings along the left-hand side here. We have turning the wetland into an amenity, a rain garden on the third one over, a naturalized area. Down on the bottom, we have a bioswale in a parking lot, a rain garden in a parking lot. We have a bioswale along the side of the street, and then a bioswale along some pathways. So we'll start this voting session. All right. Okay, I think, oh, not quite. Going to give you about 30 seconds to finish voting, and then we're going to wrap up this exercise. So what we're going to do with this, all of this information, is we're going to take it and we're going to review it, and we're going to provide a summary through the project's website. So we take this and we summarize it all, and we take all of your comments back, and we will provide it back to you and the public through the project's website. So I want to thank everybody for, well, humoring me, first of all, as I struggled to get through this, and also for providing. And so I want to thank everybody for all of your input. It's very valuable, and it helps us incorporate everything into a nice little report at the end.
Aisha, thank you very much for facilitating the session. And thank you everybody for your patience in trying to get into the different web links and participate in the activity. We'll continue on with the session, and again, the conversation will continue as the project advances. Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, yes, thank you. This is very interesting. Also really good discussion. So your job's not done yet. It's a busy night for you guys. We also have an online survey that we'd like you to participate in. And this is just an opportunity to further share your feedback, comments, questions, etc. So I'm sharing the link here in the, oops, sorry, in the chat box here. It's also available through the county's public participation webpage, as well as that link there that takes you to the project webpage that you're kind of seeing as a bit of a screenshot here. Oops, sorry. Okay. Okay, so we're just going to want to wrap this up really quick to allow for just kind of further discussion or questions if there are any. In terms of next steps, we are going to take this, as Asia had said, we're going to take your feedback here from this workshop, from this discussion today, as well as all the responses from the online survey. Also, just to note that the online survey will be open until December 14th. So if you know of someone who wasn't able to make this event, the survey will be open, as well as a recording of this presentation. So just direct them to the county website and they'll be able to participate. And as much feedback as we can get, we appreciate it. So feel free to share that information. So the feedback will help us refine kind of a preferred development scenario and select that to help us prepare policies for this area redevelopment plan. That will then lead us into the third public engagement event that will really just outline this preferred and selected development concept and be able for us to kind of come back to you and say, you know, this is what we've heard from you and this is how we've been able to refine it, and we'd like to get kind of your kind of final feedback on that, as well as the key policy objectives that are informing the area redevelopment plan policies. And that would then take us into finalizing the plan. And that's it. So if you have any further questions or comments for us, feel free to either drop it in the chat box or turn on your mic and your camera and have a chat with us. We've got about 12 minutes left from, you know, saying that this would end at 8, but we're happy to stay and continue the conversation if you'd like.
Jordan or Councilor, I don't know if you'd like to have any comments. Mike, go ahead.
Further from me, I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and participating in this, and we really value your feedback. So as was noted, we will take it back and see what we can do to get it into the plan and produce a better plan that reflects your feedback and bring it back to the public in the new years. Thank you very much.
Mike, you had a comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, so Jordan and everyone on this, have you collected what would be we mentioned a competitive advantage with respect to Nisku and this park. So have you collected inputs in terms of what's, and Kelly reminded me of this, of asking this question, what the businesses themselves are saying that either are located in the park or are decided not to locate in Nisku, as to what they want? Like, is it more power? Is it internet? Is it paved roads? Like, or do they go to the point of saying, no, I want trails and signs and trees and bioswales and all these vistas, points and everything else. I want it totally redeveloped. And then the second part of my question is this being done elsewhere, like existing business parks that have ownership? Is this being done in other areas of the capital region, and has it been successful? Like what is the you know? I asked that question because typically new areas and expanded areas are focused on with respect to funds and money and redevelopment of what would be industrial areas. I haven't seen too much of, so that would be the second part of my question.
I can start to answer, and perhaps if the others want to jump in. As to the first part, we've done a few engagements with our business community over the past few years. The main one that was an input into this project was called the Investment Readiness and Implementation Strategy, which was completed last year. So through that project, we did some significant surveying of the business community in the area, and and much of the policy direction from that informed our approach to this plan. In terms of other areas doing plans of this nature, it's certainly, so areas of this nature in the capital region and in Alberta in general are largely guided by statutory documents, and those statutory documents are either updated or replaced periodically. So the existing statutory context for this area is covered by 3 area structure plans. One is the Nisku West Area Structure Plan, which was adopted in 1980. The second one is the Nisku Area Structure Plan, which was adopted in 1981. And the third one is the Black Mud Creek Area Structure Plan, which is a newer document. I believe it was adopted in 2004. And so really, this document provides a cohesive update to all 3 of those documents, and in fact replaces them, building on what was already there. And so it's a fairly standard approach. It sort of simplifies the development context for the development community, and provides a modern and up-to-date document for them to follow. So I would say that it's a fairly standard approach. Specifically, a redevelopment plan may be a little bit more unique, but they certainly do exist throughout Alberta, and they largely follow the statutory planning process that an area structure plan would follow as well. So hopefully that answers your question. And Sam, if you wanted to add any.
Yes, Jordan, and I think you answered the question already, but I would just add that this process has been facilitated for business owners that are already on the park and those that are looking at the park. We've tried to make this discussion accessible to as many people as possible. We've tried also to be in close connection and contact with the economic development team that the county has, so that we bring those conversations into the discussion of what this plan could become for the future. Actually, part of what we heard in the first engagement session was the need for high-speed, reliable internet service into the park, recognizing the fact that not only because we're in the pandemic, but it's just part of doing business today and more into the future. And that also brought additional conversations with the county on how to link that into the policy framework that we're trying to prepare. With regards to examples of other places similar to this, I think this has unique characteristics because of the nature of how the park and the existing industries came about. But as Jordan explained, there is a standard process for jurisdictions to try to reimagine and reutilize the services or the areas that are already serviced, to try to revitalize and bring and adapt those areas for the new market opportunities that are emerging. So in that context, I would invite you, Mike, and anybody else who has joined us for this conversation, if you know of others that are in the park, business owners or employees or people that are looking for opportunities in Central Nisku, to come to the website, come to the process. We'll continue to have the conversations, and we'll continue to have these opportunities for input available. And for that, Sarah, you can probably lead us into where they can find that information.
Yeah, so there is, so if you go to the Leduc County website, you just type it into your browser and it'll bring you in. There is a public participation page specific to this project. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, it will, you'll see this digital engagement foyer. Click on that. That will bring you into this digital engagement foyer, exactly what it is, virtual open house. You'll be able to access the presentation that we provided here in a PDF, as well as it'll take you back to the Leduc County website over here. This is where you'll be able to access the survey. So just click on this and it'll bring you in. We also have a frequently asked questions page that this is current and is updated regularly. We've got some maps, and other links. Opportunity to leave a comment. And this is where you'll find the recording of the first engagement that we had back in April, as well as where we'll post the recording from tonight, and our kind of what we heard reports that follow these events. So this just contains the first one, and we'll include the second one here once we've received all the feedback and the online survey is closed early here in December. So yeah, there you go. And we go ahead if there's any more questions.
Yes, this is Kelly opting in again. Mike kind of made me think and sort of resonated with me. It's that whole notion of what could be. It's one thing to look at colors within boundaries and some descriptions to some end, but you're leaving it all to the imagination. What could be is, and I talked about my travels down to the States and whatnot, through Atlanta and Seattle and those sort of places. It's almost like if you could provide some samples of developed business parks in those, and the Americans are way ahead of us on this, and perhaps even Eastern Canada, but it gives you an idea of what could be. And once you have like I'm a visual guy. Once I see some what could be, some aerials, some drive-bys of what could be, it helps inspire my thought and my creativity so that I can lend myself better to what we're trying to do. And so I guess maybe what I'm saying is that's a little bit of a challenge then to Jordan and Sam in the group is there an opportunity to apply some visual context to the exercise? Because it is tough to imagine what it could be. And particularly when you throw in that, we're looking at a 20 to 30 year plan. Well, my motivation is to, continue to drive into the park every day. Remember what it was like in the old days and what it looks like perhaps now. And I really don't have any motivation to envision what the park may look like in 20 or 25 years because I don't have any context to that. So instead, I focus on what can we do to reduce barriers to bring in continued investment. And broadband is the big thing for us at this point. I can look across the street to EIA and see what they're doing, and that helps me. But yeah, having that visual context, that's a challenge to your group. But I wonder if there's some value to that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. And yes, that is precisely what we're trying to facilitate. And we'll try to put together a document that exemplifies some of those ideas that you just described. And we'll also make it available through the digital engagement foyer to stimulate that imagination on reimagining the central Nisku for Leduc County. But at the same time, when we started that conversation a few weeks back, we also want to temper that with balancing the fiscal reality and the fiscal competitiveness of the park. But we'll provide more inspirational visual content to try to facilitate that visioning, particularly for the development nodes that we have identified. And again, if we're strategic about it, we can get something going and then build on top of that as the plan starts being implemented and gradually achieve that transformation that we're all looking forward to.
Thanks, Sam.
We're right at the time of the meeting. Richard, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, who do I follow up with to discuss the manufacturing incubation stuff we've been working on? So I want to ensure that what we've put in place for what we've been working on since 2007 or 2008, and I just think that it needs to be incorporated in this long-term planning.
I'll say, Mr. Nichols, that we will reach out to you within the next couple of days, but if you don't hear from me, you can absolutely reach out to me.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, well, if there's no further questions or comments, we can conclude the event here now and let everyone get back to their evenings or what's left of it. Thank you very much for your attendance here today and your participation. And keep an eye out on the county webpage as well as this digital engagement foyer for updates on when the third engagement is scheduled. It will be coming in the coming months in the first quarter of 2022. And thank you very much. Bye-bye.